All right, now let me try something, Mr. Musk. I'm going to try with the Elroy's suggestion box. I'll put it there, but also just straight to Twitter. I mean, or X, I should say, formerly known as Twitter. Yes, X marks the spot and all the fun stuff, I'm sure. But if you don't understand, or even like Jack Dorsey, remember that jerk? He's grown on me a little. He did like try a bit, like it's just wouldn't between the two of you, like one of you actually understand what I mean by like it's open source right now and it should not be. Of course, it shouldn't be once, but yet like so I'll try to explain it real like childlike or whatever, okay? Because I don't think you understand it. I don't know how you don't understand it. I get that there are like 10 programmers within your midst that all fully understand it, but they don't, I don't know. Let me explain something. Because open source, like, technically, I mean, it means more than one thing, Mr. Musk. So like with OpenAI, like you wanted it to be open source and like certain stuff when you're developing it, you want like the actual open source like was very specific to like the Android technology and like making apps that work and like little widgets and like things and the open source so people can share like code and like help like get it up to snuff like quicker or whatever. And even if you wanted to do that when developing like a new app or a new website, like then you would make it open source for the purposes of like, develop it until you arrive at exactly like, okay, everybody thinks it's good or whatever. That's usually just called like a floor of like a software building or whatever, right? And it's like not actually open source. It's just like closed source within in-house. But either way, like the point is, once you're ready to like publish and print it, and actual like you know drag before you drag it over to the FTP folder there, and you like and then, the folder there and drag it through, and then it like publishes, right? Yes, I know. I'm not being super. I get exactly what I mean. Right? So the problem is, for some reason, both the app and the actual website, which the app is derived from, right? Because it's open source, and it should never ever be open source, ever once. It's not the only app that's like open source like that, but like it's just you're gonna keep having to like plug holes and like it'll just keep leaking. And what your experience is on the app when it's working properly, it's no guarantee that anyone whatsoever is gonna have that experience. Like who's a user, whether they pay for Blue or not. And this is because anyone can hack in and do basically whatever they want to an account. It's not just like it's not just the evil people like who used to work at the company who like you even did a Twitter files about it. I think maybe it was Barry Weiss did that one, like the second one or the third one or like whatever the one was with like it showed the computer and the filter buttons and how like this one's super censored and this one's super it's all kinds of like settings of censorship and do and there's like that's bad enough that even exists. It's not constitutional or ethical, and who the hell are you to decide? I get why you would need a mechanism to do that, like if called for, but like not once what they did with it right off the bat. But the other problem is that would be there whether it was in an actual like a locked, closed source and coded environment or not. There's so many people, and they've worked remotely for like so many years, and they've spread around to their like hacker friends. They've got like 20 different ways to like go into like FTP, like little do. Now they're in, and they just like mess with the code and mess with the person or do, and they use it for that, like from day one, the second since its inception. They're not, they're doing they're doing Bluebird, Project Bluebird. They don't care about Twitter. They don't care about X either. There's no bird about it. So, well, look, I guess what I'm trying to say is like actual open source kind of means that, right? People can get in to the code and share the code, which was the original and only actual meaning of open source. It doesn't matter if there's like users or if it's open to the public or da. That's not open source. Open source is open source. And the problem is, for some reason, it's just always left in a state where all those people, especially the CIA and all those scumbags, can still log in and get in and do whatever they want without asking, without da. You need to reboot the thing so that it seems identical, but it's way more efficient because it just works. Nobody's stealing all the bandwidth or like spying or cracking the signals or whatever, because what you have to do is basically copy paste. You have to do it to the website, not the app, right? The app would come second because, again, that's basically just like it's like a slave to the actual website, which is what X is. It's a website on the internet. It's not an app. I get there's an app and it's supposed to and it even does in a lot of ways work better than the one right on the Safari or whatever, the internet. But you must understand, you're going to have to take the whole shebang, the whole code for X, basically, right? And what you should do is get yourself, it's very sophisticated, it's like a new domain name of anything you want, right? And then what you do is you basically copy, paste, but then figure out how to lock out and make it closed source. There's something in the code that allows all these schemers to just keep getting in that they couldn't do if it was like a normal app. Even the CIA and all the FBI and all them would have to write you a letter and ask you to censor people, kind of like how it seems like they were doing. And yes, they were even doing that, but yet they know on top of it, they were doing whatever they want. Trust me, what you need to do is recreate the site so that it works exactly the same and everybody's data still populates from the last iteration, but everybody's locked out. And then if there's one or two checks and whatever, so that people can't even hack into the closed source one, sometimes they're able to do, nobody knows the new secret 20 digit key codes or whatever that might get them there. And even if they got in, it would be closed source, so they would be limited with what they could do. They certainly couldn't actually get onto the coding, and no one except if they're in that building should really be able to mess with the code moving forward. But trust me, that's not how it is right now, because it's open source and you have to figure out, it should be real obvious where that's coming from. It's at a fundamental level. It's open source, and it cannot be. It has to just be an app that just, no matter what, it's going to work the same for everybody. No matter what, if they want, the CIA is going to have to write you a letter and say could you here's why we want you to discriminate against this citizen or that citizen for absolutely no legal reason, but we got to put it in writing. And of course, you would just tell them to F off, or you would publish what they wrote to you if it was offensive to your sensibilities of the Constitution or even your soul, because these people don't have much. So these CIA bureaucratic spooks and the FBI ones and all these, they have nothing good planned for anyone. No one. And they don't want to help. I don't mean to throw, I know there's many good people who are bureaucrats, who like are unelected officials in the government, right? But all of them would agree wholeheartedly with me, and probably many of them are not privy to like exactly like just how much of a scam like it is that they get with Twitter or X, or like how it just works. So you're going to have to figure out how to make the internet site, the web-based one, not the app first. You'll do it with the app second, but first you really need the whole problem is because it's just that, right? You have to figure out how to get it to actually work where no one, not one person can log in or go on an FTP and type a few cool things. And now all of a sudden they have control over, like, they're into the code, or they can like, go into like crazy sub menus, or just pick out like somebody, click on their name and then do and type it in a thing, and now they can like whatever they want to like suppress information or make sure. These people are nuts, and all they care about is stuff like that, and that we mind our own business, right? While they're like, oh, but I think they want to like hurt us. And yeah, they really do. Like, they just want to lord it over us, and they're so cool, and like Satan cool or something, right? Wick. But whatever it is, these people are not all that savvy either. They just count on it was set up that way to begin with. And so they know people know. But if you just remajigger it and then shut them all out, and then once you know it's working and it works fine, as everybody's stuff's still here, but like it seems the same, right? Then what you do is, but you're certain you get the difference, and now it's like closed source, like it should be, right? Even if it means you just have to recreate the entire thing through a different like venue of like building it. I mean, it wouldn't take that long. It's not that much stuff actually, because it's a nice like condensed. I don't know. You wouldn't have to start from scratch, obviously, but in theory, like, it's exactly what you have to do. It's not starting from scratch. It's basically copy pasting this chunk from this. Like, okay, now do this one, now this column, and this stuff, right? It's only so much stuff, but you would have to make sure it's all done and kicked out in a way that was different than how it was kicked out, like the first way. And so once you do that, and you know it's actually closed source and not once open source, no one, including yourselves, can like log in like remotely and do the stuff, right? Unless like, obviously, there's like, if you need be like certain employees, right? Well, they would have to sign something and be privy to like they agree. But even then, I don't think like you ever would need anybody to get into the actual code from home ever once. Well, that's just stupid. It's not convenient. That's a liability. If you can do it and it's easy for you, lots of it, you should never work that way again, sir. You have to be really, and you have to really pay attention to like, did it change anything? Does it, you have to really care about like, if anything ever changes from verbatim, or it wants to list this or be clever, I get there's a little wiggle room for like creativeness in the like tweets column and even the replies column. But obviously the highlights and the media and the likes would have to be ironclad. And then, while the order of the first couple like changes a bit and is a little organic, you want to make sure, no, every tweet and reply is in the replies, and same with the tweets, right? So you just got to make sure it's not open source. And I don't know how else to say open source and like actually know what I mean by that, because I know what it means, right? It's a coding thing. It's a coding thing between coders, so that it was easier to like, at the dawn of like Android in particular, that's when really like developers started doing the open source thing. And even they would tell you, yes, open source, but what you would never ever want to allow is Twitter, if you're cool enough to be in the know, to know like some FTP password or some little like backdoor like application that just gets you in or whatever. So right, if you recreate it but in a closed source way, or like finish the code on like this thing because it was originally written with this, but now we're gonna like make sure it's not with this one, right? And then make sure the main chunks are there, and then you even like add like a failsafe, like new, like crazy, like 2 or 3 levels of like key code security if need be. Then no matter what, any potential app that was doing that for X or Twitter or whatever no longer can function because it's not that anymore. It seems exactly the same. It even kind of is. It's just, but it's not. It's not once the same, and all of it is rendered moot. And that's what you have to do, sir, because it's open source. It's obvious that they can just keep. You're going to have to start from scratch, but not really. It'd be really, I mean, this is like a couple days work pops because you have all the like code, and a lot of it would be exactly the same, certain if-then statements, but whatever it is, you just want to have an eye towards like, no one can get into your site, not the CIA, not Facebook, not AT&T, not Apple, not you, not no one. You have to go to the building and and that's the only place you can access that code. You can't get to it. You can't get at it, and you certainly don't have some crazy backdoor app that was like built in tandem in secret with the original, like, even, like I said, like, wouldn't the other guy, like the Jack Dorsey, like, know like even a bit about like it's open source and it shouldn't have been? And if he doesn't, like, I'm not suggesting they would have definitely told him, but I mean, it's very obvious that that's what they did. And it's also very obvious that if you care about everybody's like speech and privacy, and like that they're not going to get suppressed and blah, 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 like the first step is doing this and making sure, like, of course you don't want that. And they just steal the bandwidth, and they steal like people's data without even asking you. When I'm sure X like partners, like they'll like share data if you set it to like you agree they can but like in good faith one, not like what they're doing. So anyway, that's what you have to do. I get it's not a super technical explanation. It's more like here's what it is, and like it would be easy to figure out. Like 20 people, even who currently work for you, could like figure it out, let alone there's probably a couple experts from like, right, even like the open source people when like Android was out, and like, certain companies or like T-Mobile or like certain things like tried to like develop, there's gotta be like 1 or 2 honest people you could bring on for like a week or a month if need be to just fix it. Certainly wouldn't take longer than that, man. I mean, it's not that much stuff. It's a very efficient app, or like website, I should say, because it's not an app. The app is the app, but again, you have to fix the website, sir. Then you can go back and either your app, and then make sure your app is not open source for like, again, because that could be a potential, like, they could get in that way or whatever, right? But not if it's not, no, trust me, you just gotta like, you gotta do both. But step one is the actual like website, because you don't own an app, you own a website. That's called X. It used to be called Twitter, right? And yes, there's an app you could download, but you don't need it. Anyway, that's the point, sir. Open source. You wanted closed source, sir. And you're not the only company that, like, you could pass on what you learned to certain other ones, because they'll, I'm sure they'd be just as upset as like you might be to learn that these sneaks are just doing that the whole time. And then enough of them, they just don't mention that, and they try to protect. They're all secret agents, and they gotta like, yeah, I know about cool like agent people, right? It's sometimes they're really just not that cool. Even ones who like work for the G7 or whatever. That sounds upright. Destroy it for so good, right? But then like, something's Something's amiss. Anyway, God bless. That's your 20-minute explanation. I was meaning to do more like a 5-minute, but, hey, I opined for a little longer or whatever, all right? And, yeah, I'm going to send you off with a fun little random quote of the day. What is it, right? Where if I told you, I miss his floppy ears, his pointy head, right? Doesn't much matter now. He's just dead, right? Anyway, it's a reference from some SNL sketch from the past. I don't know why I mention it. Right? Anyway, let's go, Brandon, and don't forget to buy those mugs. Right? That's a good. I don't know if you saw a post. I reached out to POTUS. Right? He's my president, so I let him know what I thought of like some of his like optimism and like whatever about the current state of the union. Right? I mean, he's not even been in office 3 years. And if you look at how much the debt has gone up in 3 years, and I mean, it is actually like he's on track to like, it's just 10 times they had to with the interest rates. Anyway, all right. Well, God bless America. Let's go, Brandon. All the fun stuff, right? And whatever you do or don't, really, I'm unaffiliated. I don't root against Dopey Joe because that would be rooting against the country. Plus, I'm not a Republican. I don't care whichever one seems better. That's who I want to win. But at this point, I made clear I'm never Biden. I am a never Bidener. I'm just not that into him. I just don't think he's like, oh, no matter what, oh, he's the best ever. And that's just demonstrably a lie. Nah, no, he's not. No. Anyway, the thing. All right, so bippity boppity boop. That's what you do. You got to make it not open source, all right? Go back to school and do it, all right? That's just my suggestion, but I'm certain, I'm probably right, all right? All right, bye-bye.